All the students just quickly confirm this. So students, let's then start on this particular part B session. So the discussion, students, up till now that we all had, primarily, let us quickly run through that same. Tax liability, which is to be computed as per the law which is enforceable as on the first day of the relevant AY. For this very purpose, rate of tax is the first particular part, and the total income that needs to be determined. Rate of tax, two sources, Income Tax Act and the Finance Act, and the total income now. So students, what we have discussed so far in the context of total income was to determine the qualifying income, and in respect of the qualifying income, the computation shall be made in the manner laid down under the Act. So what you are supposed to compute is the qualifying income. What you are supposed to compute, students, is the qualifying income, isn't it? So the computation has to be limited or restricted only in respect of the qualifying income, and that particular qualifying income will be computed in the manner laid down under the Act. Now what we have discussed so far was that the classification of that qualifying income will hold the key. This is what we have discussed. The classification of that particular qualifying income will hold the key. Why I say so? Because a wrong classification, students, will fetch you a wrong total income. A wrong classification will fetch you what? A wrong total income. So accordingly, in this regard, the classification of the total income correctly becomes one of the most critical aspect, as the rules of computation in respect of each particular head are distinct and different to each other. The rules of computation in respect of each and every head are distinct and different from the other particular heads of income, and therefore a wrong classification would be suicidal. That is what we can say. Once the classification has been done, for which we have got the 5 heads of income primarily, thereafter, as I told you, you have to thereafter follow the computation mechanism in that particular head, and on the basis of which the income will be computed. Now point is about the classification in the correct head of income will be the first step of the computation of the income. Which income? Qualifying income. So when you have to compute the qualifying income, that is your point number 3. The first step is the classification. Now the principle of classification, students, is what we are supposed to discuss, and this is where primarily we were towards the end of our discussion. So the computation, if you speak about this one herein, first step in the computation which is to be considered of the qualifying income, step 1, classification in the appropriate head, and thereafter computation of the qualifying income so classified in the appropriate head as per the rules of the computation in that head. Now this is the principle of classification, students, that we are going to discuss right now. So let's get started with this particular principle of classification straight away. So herein the principle of classification, that is the step 1. Principle of classification. Now please pay attention, be very careful about the interpretation that is going to happen in this context. So first one, in the context of principle of classification, the first one, students, in the context of the principle of classification is the specific charge. What is a specific charge? So first in the principle of classification happens to be a specific charge, and thereafter what? Thereafter the general charge will happen. What is a specific charge, students? Let me first let you know. Now, as we are going to enter into the heads of income, you will come to know that there are certain particular amounts which are mentioned, which are referred distinctively before they do the actual classification. So, a particular income is referred distinctively for the purpose of classification only under a particular heads of income. Like for example, students, lottery winnings. Like for example, gift. Aren't they specifically referred, specifically mentioned to be classified only under the head IFOS? Yes. And that is the reason why when it comes to a gift or when it comes to an income in the nature of what? An income which is in the nature of the income in the nature of the lottery winnings, the same is distinctively, specifically classified only under the head IFOs. These are the specific charge. So whenever, students, a particular amount is referred or a particular amount is named, that the particular classification will be made in that particular heads of income. That the particular classification shall be made in that particular heads of income. This is what I mentioned the term a specific charge. Now, students, let's look upon to this one. In the context of specific charge, I'll give us two categorization. Before I do a two categorization, please all of you will pay attention to this one. Students, first example is that of interest on securities. Now I give you a particular example and you have to answer me on the same. Interest on securities earned by a dealer of the shares, and the same interest on securities is earned also by an investor of the shares. So for a dealer, in which head the interest income will be classified, and for the investor, in which head the interest income will be classified? Say, students, quickly. For a dealer, the interest income will be classified in which head, and for the investor, the interest income will be classified in which particular heads of income? Quickly, students. Dealer means for whom the securities are held as a stock in trade. For dealer, the securities would be held as a stock in trade. So the dealer who is holding the security as a stock in trade, he also is in receipt of an interest income on that security. So Harish has given the answer herein. So in this case, he is also in receipt of the interest income from that security. So is also the case with the investor as well. Padmavati. So Padmavati, she also has given the answer. Indeed, students, the answer is for the dealer of the shares, it would be incidental business income, and hence interest income will be charged under the head PGBP. Very true. And so far as the particular investor is concerned, the interest income will be charged under the head IFOs. Perfectly fine. Now be careful, all the GDAB and PenDraft students, you also are supposed to keep your answers get your answers going, and therefore once the answer gets unfolded, you should always try to participate in that way, that what would be the possible answer, get that thing going and make that particular point in your preparation. Now let me give a second example. My second example, students, is about a dividend income. Dividend income for a dealer versus a dividend income for an investor. Under which particular heads of income it will be classified? Again I am repeating, dividend income for a dealer versus a dividend income for an investor. So it is in the shares, dividend income which is earned by a dealer versus a dividend income which is earned by the investor. Quickly, under which particular head this particular dividend income will be classified? Quick, students. Harish. Now in this context, students, dividend, obviously it's the same thing. Securities are held as a stock in trade for a dealer versus a security which is held as an investment. By whom? Securities held as an investment by the investor. So both of them are in receipt of dividend income. So the question accordingly again which arises is under which particular head that this dividend income will be classified. So to that the answer, students, definitely is what? It is the IFOS. In both the cases, the income shall only be classified under the head IFOS. You'll say, sir, why? How is it so? How come that the income will only be classified under the head IFOS? So what is the reason for that, students? Please pay attention to the reason. Here the reason, students, is that as far as the dividend income is concerned, what happens? It is unconditionally, students, it is unconditionally charged under the head IFOS without any condition or the circumstances as per which the income will be qualified or classified under the head IFOS. They have not given the circumstances or the condition for classification under the head IFOS. So those condition or those circumstances is not provided for classification of the dividend income. Dividend income will only be classified only under one head, and that head happens to be the head IFOS. Only one head. There is only one God. As simple as that. So therefore in this regard, it is only one particular head where the dividend income will be classified. Same way, if I ask you, students, a lottery winnings, a person who is earning a lottery, and that particular person, one person is on a daily basis, he is engaging in buying of lottery. On a daily basis he buys a lottery and he gets the lottery winning, versus in another case where a person does not indulge into a lottery tickets and all, but in one case he has purchased a lottery ticket and he won the prize. So whether in the first case will you say it is PGBP and second case will you say it is IFOS? And the answer is no. So there also the same thing. It is unconditionally charged only under one particular head. It is unconditionally charged only under particular one head, and that head happens to be IFOS. Same is the case, students. Same is the case with the gift and all. Gift also unconditionally charged only under one particular head, and that head is what? It is IFOS. So the principle of classification, students, as I am suggesting to all of you herein, specific charge. And what is the specific charge here? Again I am repeating, the particular items of an income, a particular items of an income has been mentioned, has been referred, and on that particular basis the income is said to be charged under the head, under particular heads of income. I have given you the list. What are the list? Interest specifically referred, dividend, gift, lottery winnings. However, certain specific charge is unconditional, the charge is unconditional, and in other cases the specific charge, the charge is conditional base. In some cases specific charge, the charge is unconditional. When I say unconditional, here in the certain example, I will just take a simple example, students. As we proceed further in our discussion and we start taking up the advanced particular examples, at that point of time I will take you through to those advanced scenario, but right now only those things which you are aware from your IPCC base, and these examples are dividend. If in IFOS, students, if you see, and we will refer also, in IFOS they have only mentioned dividend, which includes deemed dividend. That's it. They haven't said that dividend will be charged under the head IFOS if it cannot be charged under the head PGBP. Like that they haven't mentioned at all. For dividend, they haven't mentioned like dividend income will be charged under the head IFOS if it cannot be charged under the head PGBP. No, nothing like that. Simply put, they have mentioned that specific amount, dividend, that's it. And they have said including the deemed dividend. Including what? The deemed dividend under section 222. That is how they have referred the term dividend, and that's what I say, dividend is specifically charged. So that is the first one. Secondly, students, apart from this one, I have given you the example of unconditional charge, lottery winnings, unconditionally charged only under the head IFOS. And the third one, I am just taking the simple example. As we shall proceed in our discussion, in our lecture. And as I told you, the PGP is my first topic, which I'm going to take it through. So when I will take you through to that session, students, at that point of time, you yourself will find out that our entire focus is on these, the way the classifications are done. At that time, I'll tell you, look, this is specifically charged under the head. Under which head? Under the head PGAP, so on and so forth. That sort of discussion we are going to have. At that time, I'm going to again recap what I'm doing it with you right now. I'm just trying to set up the principle. So what do you mean by specific charge? Specific charge means a particular amount is named to be charged under a particular heads of income. Some of the specific charge are unconditional, meaning thereby irrespective of who has earned it, irrespective of the circumstances in which it has been earned, it shall only be charged in a particular heads of income. Such is the case of the unconditional charge. Condition based charge, students, I have given you the example herein also, but again specific charge but condition based. Specific charge but condition based. What is that example which we have given? Again, the example of IFOs, I'll give it to you, that interest income shall be charged under the head IFOs if it cannot be charged under the head PGP. Please take a note of this one. If it cannot be charged under the head PGP, interest income shall be charged under the head IFOs if it cannot be charged under the head PGP. Now students, I'll also be doing with you the case laws as well. Now our way of doing the case law would be, whenever the relevant discussion is happening, at that time only the case laws would be discussed. Now the discussion of the case law would be like all the landmark judgments plus all the latest judgments covered by the ICI. So those is the manner in which we are going to discuss the case law. I find one very wrong approach on the part of the students when they do the case law. Students have got a habit of doing the case law only towards the end. So what happens is that there is no head and there is no tail. Directly they jump into the case law, they do the facts, analysis, conclusion, that's it. But the base or the background is missing. And that is the reason why it has been found that many a time students know the name of the case law, they also know the conclusion, but they are not in a position to develop the content of that particular judgment. And therefore, because of a solid content, without a solid content, the family, what is the situation? That only they are naming the case law and they are giving the conclusion, and in between the real content, which is the soul of the decision, is missing. Something that they try to write in their own particular way itself. So that does not give you the mark, students. So therefore approach should be very clear as far as the thing is concerned. You will be in a position to develop the content or the main part of the analysis of the judgment only if you do the case law as and when the discussion of that particular section is going on. So while the discussion on that particular section is going on, at that time itself I'm going to accommodate the case laws. This would be our approach, and you will appreciate as well the nuances in which we will take it further. So students, there is one first case law which has been there. Let me introduce therefore our first case law in the discussion, which is covered by the ICI itself. Name of the case law is K & Co. Please, if possible, case law name, use it from the another color pen so that you know the distinction that these are the discussion relating to the case laws. K & Co. Very simple name also. Easy to remember. One more thing, students keeps asking me one particular point very frequently, sir, what about the names and all? Very difficult for us to by heart the names. I say that names and all you don't have to remember. As per the decision given by the judiciary or as per the judgment delivered in the judiciary, that can also be the basis. The ICI is not, everyone knows. See, yes, effort has to be made as much as possible to remember the name. But if at all the name you don't remember it, no marks are deducted for it. So don't worry about the marks. You will be getting the full marks provided you write the content of that judgment decently. That is what is expected from all of you. So students, what has happened? Let me give you the facts of the case first. In the KM4, very important judgment. So students, here the case was the the company. There was a company, this company which is KMCO, SSC company. So it wanted certain government contracts, and as it has to go, because to obtain the government contracts, the government has asked for the bank guarantee. Generally, the government do ask for the bank guarantee for the reason being they need to establish the credit worthiness of the contractors who are going to execute the project. So they just want to establish what? The credit worthiness. So they have asked this particular SSC to furnish what? The guarantees. Now how do we furnish a bank guarantee? To furnish a bank guarantee, students, you will then have to make a deposit in the bank. What you are supposed to do? You are supposed to deposit the money in the bank. And accordingly, in this context also, the SSC had deposited the money in the bank. Once the money was being deposited, against which the bank has issued the guarantee, and the guarantee was thereafter, the guarantee, students, was thereafter was given to whom? To the government. Now the very fact that the money was obviously deposited in the bank account by the SSC, so in that deposit account the interest income got accrued. Therefore, the question that came up was that interest income that got accrued in that deposit account, from which the guarantee was issued by the bank, that interest income will be classified or it will be charged under which particular head. And whatever you tell me the answer, students, you have to also give me the reason. While you tell me the answer, please also try to give me the reasons as well. Quickly. Which head it would be classified? That is the first question. And second one is the which head, and second one is what? First one is under which head it will be classified, and the second one is the reason for that. Think about it, all of you. The pen drive and G drive students also will be thinking about it very carefully. Live batch students, they can quickly make their reply. And whilst the pen drive and the G drive students, you will ensure to get your reasons. I'm only main concerned with the reasons. Quickly, students. This interest income will be classified under which head? Along with the reason. So students, in this context, all of you would have said that this interest income is chargeable under which head? Under the head PGBP. PGP. Harish says IFOs, as its main purpose is not getting interest income, so cannot be classified in PGBP. Fair enough. So there is one particular discussion argument is about IFOs should be the income. Reason is that as the main purpose is not getting the interest income, so it cannot be classified as PGBP. Fair enough. It's a good try. Students, herein let us try to focus upon this particular aspect. Be very careful. In this scenario, let us first, I'll just give you the brief facts of the case quickly, and then I'll show you also how to present your answers as well. Since presentation is equally very important. Okay, so therefore quickly write the brief facts. the SSE company. In order to obtain the contracts for his business, had to furnish bank guarantee for the purpose of which it had to make deposit with the bank. The interest income got accrued from the deposit made with the bank. Under which head the interest income shall be chargeable. Okay, so here in students, how you will put across, how you present an answer for a case law. I'll just give you for one particular aspect. So the manner in which you will put across the answer. First point, students, always has to be the relevant provision. Relevant provision. Please make the header like this. Kush, we will see on this one. Relevant provision. Now, students, one point which I just wanted to tell to all of you, many a times students find it like difficult to recall like what is the section number and all. Chances are there that you may not know the section number. 80 to 90% you will be in a position to deal with it, but sometimes there is uncertainty. So in that context, students, what I will suggest, if you don't know the section number, you can just take a note of this particular point which I am doing it with you straight away. That time you should write, if you are not aware of the relevant number of the section, you are aware of the substantive content, but the section number is not known, you are not in a position to recall, so you can write relevant position of law. Relevant position of law as a header, point number 1. Why? Because you will start with as per the Income Tax Act, isn't it? As per the Income Tax Act. Whereas if you know the section number itself, or which 80 to 90% of the answers you will always know, in that case you will directly write relevant provision. So that is one point which I thought of just letting you all know about the same. So herein you can just quickly write this particular point as per section 56 subsection 2 comma interest income shall be charged under the head IFOS if it cannot be charged under the head PGP. If it cannot be charged under that PGP. Fine friends, all of you have written up till here. And as per section 56(2), interest income shall be charged under the head IFOS if it cannot be charged under the head PGP. Fine students, now all of you will pay attention to what I am saying to all of you. Students, here whenever you write a provision, many a times what happens is that students in their next point they will directly jump, please pay attention to what I am saying, they will directly jump into the analysis and then they will go to the conclusion. So provision, analysis, conclusion. You also will develop the same format primarily. But one point which you will do which others will not be in a position to do is that after writing the provision, students, after writing the provision, you should thereafter introduce one sentence which will not come to you automatically. You have to develop this. You have to develop this particular ability, students. What is one sentence which I want all of you to, in the same point, next line, what you should do, you should briefly write the nature of this provision or briefly write the maybe sometimes objective of the provision, sometimes nature of the provision, sometimes objective of the provision. Here we can write about the nature of the provision primarily. What is the nature? I have already explained to you. What is the explanation? The charge of interest income is specific under the head IFOS but is condition based. But is what? Condition based. This is what I am trying to tell. Here I was just trying to tell you nature. This is something has to be developed. Sometimes you can tell objective what is the provision, but it should not go beyond one sentence. It should not be like a commentary. Don't overdo this. The delicate balance that you will maintain in trying to put across. Now this will not come to you overnight. This has to be done through practice. But if you can do, students, let me then tell it to you, it will come so easy, effortlessly, that the same practice you can continue with the papers like IDT, with the papers like auditing, with the papers like law. In fact, students, I can remember one particular, in auditing there is a professional ethics, and in the professional ethics topic there is like everyone knows that professional ethics comes. So what they do is that they by heart, all of students will by heart the clause. In fact, I also did the same thing, by hearting the clause. So one of the clause of professional ethics that the CA, the practicing CA, cannot do the advertisement to get his client. So he cannot do what? Advertisement to get his client. Now there is a reason for this, and the reason is quite philosophical. So what is the philosophical reason? So they have said that a man should stand erect by himself and not be kept erect by others. This dictum, which is true in the case of a normal man's life, is more true in the case of a professional's life. This dictum, which is true in the case of a normal man's life, is more true in the case of a professional's life. So what is the situation? A man should stand erect by himself and not be kept erect by others. This is the game. And accordingly, students, in this regard, primarily, what is the, now what you are telling By virtue of this, you are giving the objective why this particular clause has been introduced. So in that next sentence, after the provision, same point but the next sentence. Same point but the next sentence, the way I have put across over here. This, students, will go a long way. And I'm telling you, your maximum worry of scoring in the theory papers will go out. Because auditing, law, all these are provision based. It's a law based paper. Even auditing is a law based paper. DT and IDT as well. Obviously for DT I have already told you, only for the case laws you write, not for other thing. You will not get an opportunity, otherwise you will not be in a position to complete your papers. Only whenever it comes for the case law, wherein your first point is the provision that you have to put forth, that time you will have to give this particular analysis. One sentence will be sufficient, and that is what it will be done. And this is the trick, students, that you will go on to do it. No one will be in a position to be close to your answers. These are the techniques that you should always, this will come into play big time. Now second point, students, as I told you, analysis. What is this analysis? Herein, now let me then give you to you the main answer. So this is the soul of the discussion. Under what reason that the income will be classified under which head? So the answer for this question, students, pay attention now. The answer for this question of K and Co, the head in which this interest income will be classified, the head in which this interest income will be classified will be which head? Under the head. Which is that head? Under the head PGBP. Why is it so? Why it is PGBP? Students are suggesting no sir, it is IFOS. Students, tell me one thing. This particular, the deposit that the SSC has done in the bank to obtain the bank guarantee, the deposit which the SSC has done in the bank to obtain the bank guarantee, was it on account of a business decision or was it on account of an investment decision? Was it because of the business decision that he has to make a deposit, or was it an independent investment decision that he has done the deposit? So it will not be said that there was an independent investment that the SSC has done in this case. We cannot say that this is an investment decision. We cannot say this is a part of the investment decision. This deposit he had to do on account of yes Harish, on account of a business expediency, a business necessity. Because of the business necessity that the deposit has to be done. Otherwise, who is interested to earn 5% rate of interest? I may have got a better avenues to earn the interest income. If I have to do it, I have to earn the interest income, then I will have a better avenue to earn the interest income. This was majorly deposit I have to do because of a business expediency. What do you mean by the term expediency? Expediency means necessity. And on account of that expediency, that the deposit was made, and from that deposit the interest income arose. And accordingly, finally we conclude that this interest income is incidental business income and therefore will be charged under the head PGBP. What is this condition based charge? Student, this condition based charge is very clear that you have to first exhaust the option of whether it can be charged under the head PGBP. Whether it can be charged under the PGBP. This option should be fully exhausted. Only when you are 200% sure that the income cannot be classified under the head PGBP, that it will then be classified under the head. Which head? Under the head IFOS. So this is exactly how it has to be considered. So be very careful in terms of the interpretation. So please come to this one, students, here. In the present case, the deposit made in the bank from which the interest income arose was on account of On account of. Very important term, students, I'm now using. So please try to use a different color pen. Expediency, I told you. The meaning of the same is necessity. Fine. Was on account of a business expediency. And not on account of any independent investment decision. And not on account of any independent investment decision. Therefore, the interest income earned on bank deposit which was made students, in the conclusion part also, you don't only write. See, this is the habit, and that is the best part. Over a period of time, students, while we will keep on practicing case laws after case law, this habit I want to imbibe in all of you. Consciously, we'll try to make this an effort. And I'm telling you, through a conscious pursuit, we will be in a position to achieve that excellence, if not perfection. When you do the conclusion part, students, in the conclusion part also, you don't only conclude by saying it is charged under the PGBP. No, please also give a 2 or 3 words justification. Like here, being an incidental business income. This is again an additional tract which I have made it, so that the conclusion should not look very plain. It should have some sort of a coloring of the content, of the context. So that coloring has to be done. Coloring doesn't mean the coloring of the pen. Coloring means the coloring of the reasons. So it should not be only plain and placid, like you say charge under the, therefore it is charged under that PGP. It's so easy to give a shortcut, but it is difficult to really build upon the reason. Now, initial particular lecture, we will always keep on trying and trying on this aspect as to developing those solid reasoning ability. So conclusion, PGBP. Why? Because it is an incidental business income. That is how we will conclude in terms of our conclusion. This is how, students, you are supposed to put forth your answer, the case law answers. So this is your K and Co. Brief facts, relevant provision I told you, or I have told you relevant position of law. Position of law, when you are going to quote this, you shall quote this if you are not sure as to the section number. At that time, please write relevant position of law, because then you will start with as per the Income Tax Act. That is how you are going to build up across, isn't it? This is how it goes with it. Let me give you now the other example. This was the first one, IFOS. Apart from that, in the same category, students, other example of IFOS herein. Let us keep building upon. the condition based charge. So what is the next example of condition based charge? The next one, for the condition based charge, higher charges on letting out of plant and machinery furniture and fixtures shall be charged under the head IFOs if it cannot be charged under the head PGUP. If it cannot be charged under the head PGUP. So higher charges on letting out of plant and machinery, furniture and fixtures shall be charged under the head IFOs if it cannot be charged under the head PGUP. Fine. Same condition based. Again a comparative charge, but a condition based. Just like the way interest has been done. Now on this part there is one landmark judgment which I want to discuss with you straight away. A landmark judgment. And that landmark judgment is in Lakshmi Silk Mills Limited. Supreme Court judgment. Old judgment, but still worth a particular giving a shot on this particular landmark judgment. Old judgment in 80s. So let us look upon to this one. But again a specific charge. Why it is a specific charge? Specifically they are naming what? Higher charges on letting out of the plant and machinery. So a specific element of an income is charged under the head IFOs. Under the head IFOs, but condition based. It is not unconditional, it is condition based. And what is the condition? Only if it cannot be charged under the head PGUP. Now students, before I start discussing this, let me there was a query which was raised by some students earlier. So let me give you also the benefit of that query, which was really a good query I thought. So one of the students earlier he has asked me one query when I was discussing this particular point, and the query that was being asked, that student was from Ahmedabad. So what the student had asked was that, sir, in this interest income that you have asked, that the bank guarantee which has been created, so that we accept that it is charged under the head IFOs, under the head PGUP, because it is on account of a business expediency. What this student has asked was that against a bank FDR, fixed deposit receipt. So this is a different example, a different question that he has asked. What the question that he has asked was, against a bank FDR, fixed deposit receipt, the company got the OD facility. The company got what? The OD facility. Fine. On that OD facility, he is supposed to pay the interest income, the interest expenditure that he was incurring. From the bank FD income, from the bank FDR, he is getting what? Interest income. So what he has asked the question was that can he net off the interest expenditure which he is getting from bank OD, can he net off this interest expenditure with the interest income which he is receiving from the bank FDR? Can that netting off, can it be done? Students, all of you will think about it. It was really one of the wonderful query. Think about it along with the reasons. Live students, if you may, can get me the reasons also. Can you do a netting off of the same? pen drive, G drive students, you will also think about it along with the reasons. Get the reasons going. It is very critical to develop the reasons. Can you do the net off? The interest expenditure from the bank OD, can he net it off against the interest income from the bank FDR, fixed deposit receipt? And the net income is what he is offering to tax. The net income is what he is offering to tax under the head IFOS. Whatever is the net income thereafter, that he is offering to tax under the head IFOS. This is what he is doing. Okay. So all of you, so primarily I'm getting the answer herein, but again, before I step in, I'm making the facts very clear to you. The fact was that here was a case where the SSC company, against their FDR, bank FDR, they got the OD facility. Against the bank FDR, they got the OD facility. Now in that OD facility, there was an interest expenditure, and from the bank FDR, they got the interest income, isn't it? So that expenditure, the company want to net it off with the bank FDR income, the interest income, and the net interest income he wanted to charge under the head IFOS. So students, the answer is no. This is not the correct treatment. Why is it so? These are two independent cases. The bank FD that you have created is an independent investment decision. Do you all agree? This is not a bank guarantee example. This is a different. This is a query which I am discussing. So the bank FD that you have made is on account of an independent investment decision. Do you all agree? And because it is on account of an independent investment decision, therefore, through that FD, the interest income will be charged. Through that FD, the interest income will be charged under the head. Which head? Under the head IFOS. So therefore, there is no particular this thing. IFOS, it will be charged because there is a specific chargeability of the interest income. Now, what about the interest expenditure? Can that expenditure be deducted against this interest income? Again, the answer is no. Why? Because students, if you know, in PGBP, we have the section 3613. Many of you may not be aware of the section number, but at least while you would have done in your PGBP, if you can recall. If you cannot recall, we'll anyway do it in our final C also. So there, what we have discussed, if you can recall in your IPCC, that interest expenditure on the loan borrowed from the bank is specifically allowed as deduction under which head? Under the head PGBP, if the loan is applied for the purpose of business and profession. So if the loan is taken for the purpose of business, then the interest expenditure on such loan will be allowed as deduction under which head? PGBP. So even that is what? Even through section 3613, that interest expenditure is specifically charged. Charged under which head? Under the head PGBP. Now also, sir, how come it is charged? Because be careful students, when you say income does not always means it is a positive amount. It can also mean the negative amount also. And what is the negative amount? The P&L debit side. So if there is a profit, there is a loss. There is an income, then there is an expenditure. So therefore, in that context, herein there is a specific charge of interest as an expenditure against the loan which is borrowed for the purpose of business and profession. Where the specific charges? The specific charges under section 3613, on the basis of which this particular interest expenditure will be allowed as deduction under the head PGBP. So if the condition of 3613 is getting satisfied, you have to check out the bank OD has been taken by the company for what purpose? For what purpose the bank OD has been taken by the company? For the purpose of its business. And that is it. So the loan was taken for the purpose of business, and hence against that loan, whatever is the interest expenditure that was been incurred, that interest expenditure will be allowed as deduction under the head. Under which head? Under the head PGBP. And please therefore don't do this netting off. That FDR is getting netted off. The FDR interest income getting net off against the interest expenditure, there is a specific charge. There is what? A specific charge for both the income as well as the expenditure if the respective conditions, if what? The respective conditions are fulfilled. For the income, the respective condition is that the interest income will be charged under the head IFOS if it cannot be charged under the head PGBP. So in this example which was being raised, this interest on the FDR, is on account of an independent investment decision. Is on account of what? An independent investment decision, and therefore what? Therefore, it will be considered as an income chargeable under the head IFOS. Whereas, in the context of the interest as an expenditure, again, there is a specific charge under the head PGBP provided the respective condition of 36(1)(3) is satisfied. And what is that? The interest expenditure arising on the loan will be allowed as reduction under the head PGBP if the loan is taken for the purpose of business and profession. And since both the respective conditions are getting satisfied, therefore for interest income, chargeability under the head IFOS, and for interest as an expenditure, the chargeability would be under the head PGBP. This is exactly how you are supposed to do it. So that was one of the very good query which was being raised at that time. So I thought of discussing with all of you. So here in students, this is one thing which I'll keep on tossing in as we will proceed also. And this is how you should be very careful about it. A slight mistake or slight temptation of reducing this with that, don't get or fall into that temptation just because there is a bit of nexus between the two. No, if there is a specific charge, then you don't see the nexus. If there is a specific charge, then you don't see that kind of a nexus. So yes, there is a specific charge subject to the fulfillment of condition, and the respective conditions have been fulfilled, and accordingly it will be charged in the respective heads. One for the income under the head IFOS, another for the interest expenditure under the head PGBP. I hope that all of you have got hold with this particular point. Fine. Let's proceed then, students, herein. Coming to this particular part, and as I was telling you, there is also one case law which was being there. So let me give you the case law straight away in this context. In this situation, let me give you the facts of the case straight away. The company on account of temporary shutdown of the factory, comma, had to give the plant and machinery on hire. So as to absorb its fixed overheads. So as to absorb its fixed overheads. Next para. The lockdown was on account of the strike by the workers with whom the management was in negotiation. The higher charges earned will be charged in which heads of income. So this was a fact of the case. All of you copied on this one quickly. Fine. Now students, tomorrow positively the dispatch of the book would be made from our end. So hopefully all the students who are registered now, from our end we will be making the dispatch of the books. In the meantime, on Saturday I'll still be issuing to the students the first topic which is there, the PDF of our first topic, so that in that context what will happen is that the students will be in a position to run through the same while the books would be in transit. Okay, so tomorrow we will be sending across the books across to the students, the registered students who are there, so the books would be dispatched from our side. Fine. Now students, in this context, so again there are total 5 modules that we are preparing, and very thoughtfully we have made this entire modules, including lot of practical problems, case studies, analysis, everything. So you yourself will have a complete command and control over the entire law. The way it should be learned, you are going to learn in the same way, the way it ought to be learned. Okay. So let's look upon to this one, fact of the case. So this was a temporary shutdown of the factory income, and on account of this temporary shutdown, primarily the company had to give the plant and machinery on hire. So it was a manufacturing company. Now obviously what was happening was that fixed overhead was already there and the lockdown was getting stretched. So what the company did, that till the time the negotiation is reached with the workers, at least by giving that particular facilities or the plant and machinery on hire, we will be in a position to earn the rent. We will be in a position to earn the rent, and that rental income by itself will help us to reduce or give us the relief of what, students? Give us the relief of the rental income itself will give us the necessary relief. So against our fixed cost. So therefore the question came up was that under which particular head this particular higher charges will be classified, under the head IFOS or under the head PGBP. This was the issue under consideration. So your take, students, in this regard, quickly. Which particular head? So first point, as we know, the relevant provision, I am not writing again the thing, but I am just giving the format. So relevant provision we all know, I am not going to repeat it again, the same thing which we have written above. Okay, analysis. Which head? It will be indeed under the head PGBP. It will indeed be under the head PGBP. Why it will be under the head PGBP? Reason being, yes, Padmavati, Harish, it will be under the head PGBP. Hiren, yes, it will be under the head PGBP. Why is it so, students? The reason is quite clear, that here the let out again which was done was on account of a business expediency or a necessity, commercial expediency. There was a business expediency to do the let out. It was not a kind of an independently I am just giving a let out of a facility. No, it was my business expediency because of the reason that I have to give the let out of this particular plant and machinery, and therefore the interest charges or the interest or the higher charges, the higher charges which I have earned from this temporary let out will be charged under the head business income on account of the same reason that it is an incidental business income. Students, just be very careful. If supposingly this would have been a permanent lockdown, if it is a permanent lockdown, then the business is closed, and if thereafter after the business is closed that the let out has been given, then in that case we can say what, it will be charged under the head IFOS, because then there is no business expediency or the business connection as far as the let out is concerned, because the let out in this example was being done after the closure of the business, and if it is done after the closure of business, then from that let out whatever is the rent that has been earned, that rental income will be charged under the head IFOS, unless somebody can argue. What is the argument? Argument would be that, sir, what if that he has entered into a lease business after closing his factory? So that is a different league. If you say that he is entered into the leasing business, then in that case it is PGP. But if the question is silent, they only say to you in the examination that after the closure of the factory, that the plant and machinery and the furniture has been given on rent. That the plant and machinery and the furniture has been given on rent, under which head this particular rental income will be charged. That time you will say that the rental income in this case will be charged under the head, under which head? Under the head IFOs. Okay, so therefore this is how it has to be considered. So please take a note of this one. Analysis in the present case, the same, actually the analysis is the same, so there will not be much of difference. In the present case, the let out of the plant and machinery is on account of business expediency, that is so you are just explaining what is that business expediency for the purpose of which the let out was done. You are just giving that explanation. So in the present case, the let out of the plant and machinery is on account of business expediency, that is the let out that is the let out is undertaken temporarily, underline the word temporarily, to reduce the fixed business overheads. Third conclusion, therefore the higher charges shall be taxable under the head PGP as an incidental business income. As an incidental business income. Therefore, the higher charges shall be taxable under the head PGP as an incidental business income. Okay. Last sentence, students, also do right. However, if the shutdown would have been permanent, and thereafter the let out would have been undertaken, then the higher charges would be taxable under the head which head runs IFRS. So that time it would be IFRS. So you can just make this passing remark also that yes, that look, if it would have been a permanent, because they have emphasized in the question or in that case study that it is a temporary let down, or it is temporary let out. So in that regard, you are saying that this higher charges will be taxable under the head IFRS. Oh, sorry, under the PGP. So you can always make the remark as your last sentence that look, if this would have been a permanent let down, then the situation would have been different and it would have been charged under the head IFRS. But again, I am telling you, students, please don't overdo these kind of tricks. This is only to be written in one sentence. That is how it has to be considered, because the question was on the temporary let out and you are giving an alternative perspective of what would be the chargeability if this would have been a permanent let out. So the alternative perspective that you are introducing in your answer should be as brief, as limited as possible. Did you all got this one? Fine. So this is again another example of a specific charge but condition based. So I've given you two examples. I will give you one more last example. So one more last example, students, I'll just give it to you herein, and as and when it will come under our discussion, so that time also I'll let you know that look, these are the specific charge. They are naming the amount of the income to be charged under a particular head. Now only thing that we have to identify whether it is condition based or it is unconditional. Unconditional, certain examples which are very popular, I've already mentioned to it. Condition based, subject to the fulfillment of this, that the income will be charged under this particular head. But they are specifying the name of the income, which income. That exactly make this to be a case of a specific charge. One last example in the context of specific charge. Let me then give it to you the last example herein, students, and that is about the Cayman insurance policy amount. Now students, Cayman insurance policy amount. Now you will find surprisingly there are three heads of income where now this is specifically they have mentioned, and you will find it in three heads of income. One in salary also it has been mentioned, another in PGVP also it has been mentioned, and the last one in IFOs also it has been mentioned. So obviously it depends upon now what is the condition. This is a specific charge of Cayman insurance policy as an amount under the head salary, under the head PGVP, and under the head IFOs, depending upon who is the beneficiary of the amount. So if the beneficiary of the amount, students, if the beneficiary of the amount happens to be whom? The employee, the one who is going to be the recipient, then it will go under the head salary. If it happens to be an employer, then it will go under the head PGBP. And last but not the least, if it happens to be the other person, the third party, so other person herein, like say creditor, example, as an example I can give you to say creditor. So for them it will then go under the head IFOs. So depends upon what, who is the recipient or the beneficiary of this particular amount. On that basis, the specific charge in the form of a Keyman insurance policy, the specific charge in the form of a Keyman insurance policy is sought to be taxed either under the head salary or under the head PGBP or finally under the head IFOS. It all depends. Fine, students. So this is precisely how it has to be covered in this regard. I hope that you have done with this particular point. All of you have copied this one now. So this is some of the example where the specific charge is introduced under a particular head. Be very careful. If it is a specific charge, you always, whenever you have to classify your income, first you should always be careful that in the context of the qualifying income which I have to classify, if the qualifying income consists of any specific charged amount, then that needs to be accommodated first into the respective head, because there is no other confusion in respect of the specific charged amount. As far as then this, students, in your question, when you compute the total income of that qualifying amount, when you are computing the total income of that qualifying amount, then for that specific charge amount, I have already told you unconditional or conditional. Okay, but this would be only a 5% of your total qualifying income, for which you have to do the computation of total income. The specific charge amount would be only 5%. Would only be 5%. The 95% of the qualifying income for which the classification has to be done will be what? Will be as per the general charge. The general charging section of each head. So the balance qualifying income, I am just writing over here like this. Students, balance qualifying. So this balance qualifying income for the balance qualifying income, the general charging section. Now you cannot expect that they will keep on specifying for each and every income as to which is the head that will be classified. They can't do it. If they have to do it, then students, it will become what? It will become like a directory or dictionary. If they have to keep on telling that this income under this head, no. Some selected income, for that they have made a specific charge. But then what about the balance qualifying income? For that there is no specific charge, but under which head it will be classified, that will depend upon what? That will depend upon the condition or the test which is laid down in the general charging section. The condition or the test which is laid down in the general charging section. Like for example, students, if you know, for an employer and employee relationship, if you are aware of that, isn't it? So for that particular thing, we refer that a salary income will be classified under this head salary if it is arising on account of or in consequence of the employment. That is, there is an employer and employee relationship, or in consequence of the employment that the amount is received. Then in that case, amount by whatever name called, any amount by whatever name called will be classified under the head salary. This is the test. So therefore you can just write primary students over here in this context. In respect of balance qualifying income, the classification into An appropriate head will be as per the test laid down in the general charting section in respect of the balance qualifying income. The classification into an appropriate head will be as per the test laid down in the general charting section of each head. Fine, students. So our next particular discussion that we are going to have in our subsequent session will be the test on the general charting section. And students, here lies very important case law raised by the ICI. So we are going to discuss the test of the general classification. Once that, and that you will find many case laws, I think 4 to 5 case laws are there, which is dealt at the ICI. They have covered, ICI has covered on that particular test. We will discuss each and every of the case law. And finally, once that test is done, that we all now know that this is how each and every classification principle has to be considered. And once the classification is over, then we start doing the computation. And which is the computation head which we are going to pick it up first? The computation head that we are going to pick it up first would be the head PGPP. Fine, students. So this is all about this part. Keep revising up till now and know where we are now at this discussion. So we are right now on the classification stage. Specific charge of the classification is done. Now we would be focusing on the general charge. And the general charge, once that is based on the test which is laid down by the general charting section of each and every heads of income, and on that basis the remaining qualifying income will be classified in the appropriate head. And once it is classified in the appropriate head, thereafter what? Thereafter we shall then after start doing the computation of the income as per what? As per the rules which is laid down in that respective heads of income. And our first heads of income, I told you, would be the head PGP. Fine, students. So see you then in the next particular session, the class number 4 of your regular batch, May 21, November 21. I told you just now, dispatches of the books from our side will start now from tomorrow, and that is one thing which will be there. But as I told you, for my first topic of PGP, I shall also give it to you the PDF file, so that while the books are in transit, there is no difficulty that is faced by the students. See you then in the next class, students. Thank you.